I cooked for 5. Ate alone. My son's voice echoed in my head as I sat in silence, the candlelight flickering across the untouched dishes. "We're at a real grandma's house?" he had said. "So my name is Morgan Patterson, and last Thanksgiving was supposed to be different. It was supposed to be the year I pulled my family back together. The year I proved that I still belonged despite the divorce, despite the distance, despite everything." The house smelled like turkey, cinnamon, and rosemary. I had spent the last 3 days preparing the meal. The table was set with polished silver, crystal glasses, and a lace tablecloth passed down from my mother. 5 place settings, 5 chairs. I even added little name cards, a touch I hadn't done in years. I kept glancing at the clock, 3 p.m., then 3:15. At 3:47 p.m., I finally admitted it to myself, they weren't coming. Still, I held on to hope. I called my son Ethan, thinking maybe they got stuck in traffic. Maybe the kids spilled juice on their outfits. Maybe. When he picked up, I heard laughter and clinking silverware in the background. "Mom, we're at Savannah's. The kids wanted to see their other grandparents. You know how it is." Savannah. The woman who married my ex-husband 2 years ago. The woman who baked cookies with my grandkids twice and suddenly became real grandma. I held my voice steady. "Ethan, I made dinner. I set the table. I made Destiny's favorite pie." His voice changed. Defensive. "Don't guilt trip me, Mom. We'll come by next weekend." The call ended. My hands trembled as I set the phone down beside the still warm rolls. 5 plates of food sat before me, untouched. A feast prepared in hope, abandoned in silence. The cranberry sauce hadn't even cooled when I knew this Thanksgiving wasn't going to be about gratitude. It was going to be about clarity. And something inside me shifted. I wasn't going to cry again, not this time. The silence in the house was thick, almost sacred. I stood in the dining room, staring at the table I had set with such care, and my mind wandered back to the years that had led me here. I raised Ethan alone. His father, Thomas, died in a car accident when Ethan was just 11. We had been married for 15 years. In the early days of widowhood, I worked 2 jobs teaching piano lessons in the afternoons and cleaning office buildings at night. I skipped birthdays for extra shifts. I sold my wedding ring to pay for Ethan's braces. And every Christmas, no matter how tired I was, I made sure there were presents under the tree and a turkey on the table. I never complained. I didn't see the point. Loving someone meant you showed up, you gave, you tried. Ethan grew into a thoughtful, bright teenager. He got into college on a partial scholarship, and I filled the gap with parent loans and a part-time catering job. I remember sewing his graduation cap back together the night before the ceremony because it had split at the seam. He laughed and said, "You always fix everything, Mom." Back then, I thought we were close. We weren't just mother and son, we were a team. When he married Lauren, I welcomed her. I gave them my blessing and handed over the family recipe book. She liked my apple pie, or at least she said so. I babysat Destiny and Harvey whenever they asked, sometimes for entire weekends. I kept extra toothbrushes at my house for them, special snacks in the pantry, and board games tucked under the coffee table. But somewhere along the way, the visits slowed. The calls became less frequent. The photos of the kids stopped arriving in the mail. Then came the hints, subtle at first. Lauren's comments about how Savannah's house was more modern or more kid-friendly. Ethan never corrected her. When Thomas remarried, Savannah stepped in like a windstorm. She threw themed birthday parties and created photo albums that looked like magazine spreads. She called Destiny her angel girl and Harvey her little lion. They called her grandma within months. I didn't resent Savannah, not at first. I just kept hoping there was still room for me. Until this Thanksgiving, I believed that love and loyalty were enough. But I was starting to understand sometimes you can give your whole self to people and still be replaced without warning. The call came as I was adjusting the gravy boat for the 3rd time, trying to keep my hands busy, pretending I wasn't already bracing for disappointment. Ethan's name flashed on my screen. I answered immediately, forcing cheer into my voice. "Hey, sweetie, are you close?" There was a pause before he answered, then laughter in the background, clinking glasses, children shouting, "Not here, somewhere else." "Yeah, Mom, about that, plans changed." I froze. "What do you mean?" "Savannah invited us over. Her parents flew in from Florida. The kids really wanted to see them." I swallowed hard. "But you promised. You said you'd be here. I made Destiny's macaroni and Harvey's pie." Another pause. "Don't guilt trip me, okay? It's just easier this way." Easier, I echoed, my voice barely a whisper. So I'm the hard one now. Mom, come on, we'll do something next weekend, okay? Can I speak to Lauren? She's with the kids, he said quickly, but I could hear her laugh behind him, carefree and delighted. Ethan, I said slowly, I've been cooking since sunrise. I set the table. I cleaned the silver. I know, he said, his tone growing impatient. But we're at a real grandma's house. It's done, I gotta go. A real grandma. He hung up. The silence afterward was louder than any scream. I stood there, the phone still in my hand, surrounded by the scent of roasted turkey and stuffing, and felt something shatter inside me. Not just disappointment. Not even heartbreak. It was something deeper. The recognition that I had just been erased from tradition, from priority, from family. And the person who erased me was the very boy I once stayed up all night holding when he had a fever. Now I was the inconvenient one, the optional one. The not real grandma. I didn't sleep that night. The candles burned down into pools of wax, casting long shadows on the empty chairs. I left everything as it was, the place settings untouched, the rolls slowly going stale, the cranberry sauce congealing in its bowl. I needed the house to hold the silence with me, to reflect what I felt inside. At dawn, I stood in front of the mantel where our last family photo sat. Christmas, 1 year ago. Ethan had his arm around me. Lauren smiled, like she belonged. Destiny was missing her front teeth, and Harvey clutched a toy car in one hand. It looked perfect. A lie wrapped in holiday lights. I took the photo down. At the kitchen table, I pulled it from its silver frame. The scissors were where they always were, in the drawer between the meat thermometer and the old bottle opener. I hesitated for only a moment before positioning Ethan's smiling face between the blades. Snip. Then Lauren's, caught mid-laugh, looking toward my son as if I were just a shadow in the background. Snip. I held the severed faces in my hand, ghosts of the people I had once believed loved me. But I couldn't bring myself to cut out Destiny and Harvey. They were still innocent, still redeemable, still mine in some small, unspoken way. I flipped the mutilated photo over and picked up the red pen Harvey had given me last Mother's Day. The words came quickly, like they had been waiting all night. A table set for love. Only ghosts showed up. The real ones were never family. I sealed the pieces in an envelope and wrote their address on the front in neat, steady block letters. It would arrive in 2 days. A quiet reply to being erased. Sharp, unmistakable, final. 2 days later, I stepped into the office of Margaret Turner, an estate attorney in a historic brick building downtown. I had passed this place 100 times, but never imagined I'd come here to rewrite my legacy. The receptionist smiled politely as I filled out paperwork. I clutched my folder tightly. Inside it, my current will, a few notes scribbled from late-night research, and a clear resolve. Margaret greeted me with a firm handshake. She looked to be in her mid-40s, with silver streaks in her auburn hair, and the kind of calm eyes that made you feel safe enough to say difficult things. "Thank you for coming in, Mrs. Patterson," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her. "You mentioned on the phone this was about updating your will." "Yes," I said, sitting down. "It's time for some changes. Big ones." Margaret opened a legal pad. "Tell me about your current plan." I handed her the document. "I wrote this 5 years ago. Everything went to my son Ethan, with specific items earmarked for the grandchildren." She nodded. "That's a fairly common arrangement." "It no longer fits reality," I said, my voice steady. "My son and his wife made it clear this week that I'm not part of their family anymore. I want my estate to reflect that." Margaret looked up. I could tell she was weighing how much of this was emotional impulse. I met her eyes. "I'm not doing this out of spite. I'm doing it because love should not be inherited automatically. It should be earned." "Understood," she said, her tone shifting into something more precise, more respectful. "What would you like to change?" "Remove Ethan and Lauren entirely. Set up a trust for Destiny and Harvey, but with one condition: they must visit me once a year until they turn 21. Not a holiday drop-in, a real visit, a conversation, a relationship. And if they don't, the trust dissolves. The money goes to charity." She nodded and kept writing. "My house will go to the local women's shelter. They need space, and this place has 4 bedrooms. My retirement accounts, I want to fund scholarships for foster youth aging out of the system. Kids like me, who know what it's like to be forgotten. And your personal items? The ones with history, my grandmother's ring, my mother's pearls, I'm donating them to the historical museum. Let someone remember them properly. The rest can be auctioned off. When Margaret asked about legal challenges, I replied without hesitation. Let Ethan contest it if he wants. He walked away from more than just Thanksgiving. He walked away from me. By the time I left her office, I felt lighter, like I had finally started building something just for me. Something no one could take away. The satisfaction from the lawyer's office stayed with me for a few days. I finally felt like I had done something that couldn't be undone with a careless phone call or an empty apology. But the final push came from my phone. It was Thursday morning when I opened Instagram and saw Savannah's latest post. A perfectly curated tablescape, lace tablecloth, polished silver, crystal stemware, the very pieces from my former home. The caption read, "Thanksgiving leftovers taste better when served on heirloom china. So grateful for these beautiful family pieces that make every meal special. Blessed Grandma family traditions." There it was, my mother's gravy boat chipped on the handle, my grandmother's cake server, the wine glasses Dylan and I received as a wedding gift from Aunt Martha, who had saved for 6 months to buy them. Savannah was using my life as a backdrop for her social media brand. And people loved it, hundreds of likes, dozens of comments gushing about the gorgeous vintage aesthetic. I stared at the photo, the irony burning behind my eyes. She had taken everything but the story, and I still had that. So I walked back to my dining room, where the table remained exactly as I'd left it, 5-place settings, now covered in a light layer of dust, still waiting for a family that never came. The lighting was soft, natural, honest. I sat at the head of the table, hands folded in my lap, eyes slightly lowered, not defeated, but clear. Behind me, the empty chairs leaned away as if they too had given up waiting. I set up my phone, adjusted the frame, and took a single photo. No filters, no edits, just the truth. Then I opened Instagram and with careful fingers typed, "Cooked for 5, ate alone, real love doesn't forget. 9 words, 37 characters. A complete story." I hit post. Within minutes, the comments began. Friends from town, old coworkers, neighbors, strangers. "Oh, Morgan, you deserve better." This made me cry. And then the shares started. I didn't name names, I didn't accuse anyone, but in a town like ours, everyone knew who I was, who Ethan was, who Savannah was. I didn't need to tell the whole story. The photo had done it for me. Sometimes you don't need revenge. You just need truth and the courage to let it be seen. By Sunday night, the post had been shared 47 times. Not viral by internet standards, but in a town of 12,000, it might as well have been on the front page of the local newspaper. People began connecting the dots. Rebecca Walsh from my old book club, lamented, "Weren't Ethan and his family supposed to be there?" I remember her mentioning it. Others chimed in, former PTA moms, neighbors, church friends who hadn't seen me in a while, but remembered my apple pies, my piano lessons, my kindness. I hadn't planned for this to spiral, but it did. By Monday morning, I heard from Carol, my neighbor across the street. "People are talking, Morgan. Janet the flower shop asked if Ethan really skipped Thanksgiving with you." "I didn't tell them," I said, pruning the last of my chrysanthemums. "I just posted a photo." "The truth speaks for itself," Carol said, with a quiet smile. On Wednesday, the real impact landed. Lauren called. Her voice was tight, controlled, worried. "Morgan, we need to talk." "Oh, how was Thanksgiving?" A pause. 3 beats. I could hear her exhale. "That post of yours, it's causing problems. People are asking uncomfortable questions." "What kind of questions?" "About why we weren't there. About family, loyalty." "And what did you tell them?" "I said you were sick." "Interesting choice," I replied. "You could have told the truth, that you were at Savannah's, with the real grandma." There was another silence. "That came out wrong," she said. "We didn't mean." "But you did," I interrupted, calm and clear. "You said it, and now people know it." Lauren's tone shifted to pleading. "Can you take the post down, please? It's hurting my partnerships." Sunset Boutique already reached out about it. I'm sorry to hear that, Lauren, I said, but I can't take down the truth. She didn't respond right away, and I didn't offer more. The conversation ended the way it began, quiet, distant, full of everything they had chosen to ignore. They thought I was silent, forgotten. But now the town saw what I had lived through. And that more than anything was justice enough. By the weekend, I found myself standing in front of the County Heritage Museum, a Victorian building with wraparound porches and time-stained windows. I had walked to its doors many times before field trips with Ethan, school projects, Sunday afternoons when I needed stillness. But this time I came with a mission. I carried a small velvet box in my hands. Inside was my grandmother's mourning brooch, jet black stones arranged like a flower, surrounded by seed pearls yellowed with age. She wore it to every funeral for 30 years. She gave it to me when I turned 16 and told me, "This brooch holds more love than sorrow. Wear it when you need to remember both." I was wearing it now. Patricia Hartwell, the museum director, greeted me in the main hall. We had served on the library board together years ago. "Morgan, what a surprise. Are you here to see the new exhibit?" "Not today," I said. "I'm here to donate something." Her eyes lit up as I handed her the box. She lifted the brooch delicately and studied it with reverence. "This is exquisite, mid-century, Irish immigrant." 1952, I said. "It belonged to Catherine O'Brien Patterson, my grandmother." We talked for a while about provenance, significance, and how few Irish-American women's artifacts they had from that era. Then I handed her a handwritten card. "I'd like this to be the placard beside it." She read it aloud. "Mourning brooch, circa 1952. Worn by Catherine O'Brien Patterson in remembrance of loved ones lost. Donated by Morgan Patterson, left behind, but never forgotten. May this piece remind us that love endures betrayal, and history belongs to those who preserve it." Patricia looked up, her voice softer now. "Are you sure you want to part with it?" "Yes," I said. "I want to make sure someone remembers us the right way. Let Savannah post photos with my stolen china. Let her wear my stories like props. But this brooch, this was truth behind glass. Permanent, untouchable, real." The weeks passed. November crept toward Thanksgiving again, but this time there was no anxiety. No frantic menu planning, no waiting for RSVPs that would never come. I shopped for one. It was surprisingly peaceful. I wandered the grocery store at my own pace, choosing exactly what I liked, no need to worry about Ethan's preference for dark meat, Lauren's gluten-free demands, or whether Harvey would touch green bean. I bought a small heritage turkey. Fresh cranberries for a sauce that was neither too sweet nor too tart, just right. Butternut squash soup with roasted garlic, sweet potato souffle with real maple syrup. Everything tailored to my taste. For the first time in decades, the meal reflected me, my joy, my traditions. I started cooking Tuesday morning. There was no rush. I played soft jazz from the radio, let the smells fill the house. I wasn't preparing for guests. I was honoring my own presence. On Wednesday evening, I set the table. One place setting. At the head of the table. Not out of sadness, but out of clarity, I arranged fresh garden flowers as a centerpiece. The last of the fall blooms. The china, what remained after the divorce, gleamed under the overhead light. One wine glass, one linen napkin, one candle. Thursday morning arrived crisp and golden. I dressed with intention, burgundy dress, pearl earrings, lipstick just for me. I lit the single candle and served myself at 2 p.m., the exact time I used to serve when the house was full. The food was perfect, not because it was flawless, but because it was free of performance, free of pressure, free of pretending. Midway through the meal, I laughed. Not bitterly this time, but warmly, amused by how long it had taken me to realize that cooking for one didn't mean being alone. It meant finally choosing myself, and that tasted better than any turkey ever could. Just as I was considering dessert, the doorbell rang. For a split second, my heart jumped. Old instincts, hard to unlearn. Maybe Ethan. Maybe the kids? But through the peephole, I saw Emma Costanos from next door, her 8-year-old daughter Sophia beside her, holding a plate covered in foil. When I opened the door, Sophia beamed. "We brought you cookies." Emma smiled a little sheepishly. "I hope we're not interrupting," Sophia insisted. "She's been talking about you since we moved in," Emma added. She says your garden smells like vanilla. I blinked, caught off guard. Would you like to come in? I just finished dinner. They stepped inside, bringing warmth that felt genuine, not out of duty, but out of choice. We sat in the kitchen, not the dining room. Sophia talked about squirrels, her school play, and her theory that Thanksgiving was secretly a squirrel holiday. Emma laughed and shared stories about adjusting to small-town life after years in Los Angeles. We didn't talk about family or betrayal. Just squirrels, cookies, and gardens. When they left, Sophia gave me a hug. You're like my grandma in Mexico, she whispered. She was really nice too. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Not for what I had lost, but for who I still was. That evening, as I washed my single plate and wrapped the leftovers, my phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. The kids have been asking about you. Can we set up a visit? I dried my hands carefully, then typed my reply. They know where I live. 1 visit a year unlocks their future. A pause. Then another message from him. What does that mean? I answered plainly. It means exactly what it says. Destiny and Harvey are always welcome here. You and Lauren are, too, when you're ready to treat me with the respect I deserve. The legal documents explain the rest. I powered off my phone without waiting for a response. There were dishes to finish, a candle to blow out, and a quiet satisfaction to sit with. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting on their love. I had drawn the line. And this time, it would hold. They told me I wasn't the real grandmother. And for a while, I believed them. But I've come to understand being real isn't about bloodlines or who throws the biggest parties. It's about who shows up, who stays, who tells the truth when it's hard and sets boundaries when it hurts. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was seeking peace. And I found it. In a quiet Thanksgiving meal, for one. In a handwritten placard beside a brooch that outlives betrayal. In the laughter of a little girl next door who saw me as more than invisible. They may have written me out of their story, but I wrote myself back into history. If you've ever been replaced, erased, or quietly forgotten, let this be your reminder. You are not less, you are just not theirs anymore. Like this story? Share it with someone who needs it. Comment below. Subscribe for more stories of real strength and quiet justice.